So today we're going to talk about how to strum smoother and faster. Now, strumming is actually my favorite part of playing the ukulele. One of the questions I get a lot in with my students is, is it even that worthwhile to learn how to strum if you don't sing? And the answer to that, I think, is a big old yes, because strumming really, I think, is one of the most unique parts of the ukulele and the sound that you can get, especially when you're playing a high G ukulele. So the first thing we want to talk about is the actual strumming mechanics to get a really smooth strum. The first thing is that most people that strum incorrectly, now real quick, there's no real wrong way to strum an ukulele. This is just a more efficient way I've found to increase speed and control. But a lot of people will strum their ukulele something like this. And that, while, it sounds fine, it's very inefficient. And the motions make it very difficult to speed up or to have a lot of control with the strumming. So the first thing that we want to talk about is where we want to strum from. A lot of people think it's from the elbow, that we should be, moving the elbow back and forth like this. But in doing this, you see how much motion we're actually kind of using and wasting. Instead of thinking of it with the elbow, we want to start thinking of it with the forearm and with the hand. And we can almost think of this as like gears on a car. The elbow here is like first gear in the car, very inefficient, very powerful. The second gear you can think of as the forearm here, which is really more of this twisting motion, like so. Aldrin Guerrero has this great analogy where he talks about twisting a doorknob, that same sort of motion. I love that because it's so accurate. It's this movement back and forth. See how the elbow's not moving up and down, but rather the arm is moving more side to side? You want to be doing that more, and then with your hand and your fingers specifically, actually assist in the motions. So what I find is the best for speed and tone and control is using just that index finger on your strumming hand. And what you'll actually do is you'll take the nail of the finger and you'll point it towards the strings, like so. So we're not sideways like this, but the nail's pointed towards this area. And I'm going to flick over across all four strings going down. And when I do this, I'm going to turn my wrist, just like we talked about, not move the elbow, but turn the wrist, and I'm going to flick my finger outward. Now there's a sweet spot to do this. On my tenor ukulele, you'll notice that my fretboard and my body meet at this point, right at like the 14th fret going 15 above. I like to actually do my strumming over this area. I find it gives you the best tone, and it acts as this little ramp for your fingers so that you don't get caught. Because if you try strumming really hard and fast down here, you can catch that finger and whew, it hurts. Trust me, I know. And so what we're looking at now is twisting the forearm, flicking the finger, moving the hand, using the nail of the finger going down over this sweet spot on all the strings. That's a lot. But those motions really help to get a more efficient sort of strum. In addition to this, what I'll do is on my up strum, I'll use my index finger fleshy part of the pad to kind of come back up. So I'm going to go down with the nail, flicking the finger down, twisting the forearm in this sort of sweet spot. Then we curl the finger up while still making that twist of the arm. See how I'm not doing anything with the elbow, right? It's just down, up, down, up. Forearm is engaged, fingers working. It makes it much more efficient. The big deal for this is when we strum an ukulele, we only have this much space we're strumming over, right? The strings aren't from here to here. Sometimes I watch people strum and they're going like this. And they're making a motion from here to like here, which is like, what, 5 or 6 times more than they need to for those strings? Now, we're never going to be perfectly efficient, right? We're never going to be like, stop, 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 right? That's not going to happen. But as a little guideline for efficiency, I try to never have my hand leave the body of the ukulele when I'm trying to strum faster. So you see with this, my index finger kind of caps right here before I move it back down, and it caps about right here. Not going down and up like this, but staying within the sort of body of the ukulele. That can help so much. You'll notice this has all been the index strum, right? And Zil just asked, what about thumb strumming? And, with this particular technique of strumming faster and in more control, the thumb isn't really utilized here unless you're doing something called ghost note strumming, which, as a little bit of a plug, we have a course coming on Rock Class 101 that I'm doing on strumming, specifically ghost note strumming. We're calling it Next Level Strumming, I believe, and that will be available in the next month or so, tentatively. So that will use the thumb. Right now, though, all of this is just the index finger that we're wanting to use. No thumb action at the moment, just that index. In fact, another thing to note is all of the other fingers' positions. Right now, I've got my fingers kind of open. You can just as easily close these fingers and do the same sort of motion, and it's exactly the same. It doesn't really matter. I like to have my fingers open because it makes my hand feel a little bit more balanced, but some people find the fingers closed is actually more efficient. So it just depends on your personal taste. So just to recap so far, don't strum like this to strum fast. Strum more in the forearm and the finger, twisting the forearm, flicking the finger down and up, using the nail of the finger on the down strum and the pad of the finger on the up, and try to maintain that strum in this what we call sweet spot, which is this area right here where the fretboard meets the body of the ukulele. All right, so the last note there is it's not very big, the area that we have to strum, so we can keep it, kind of in this narrow of we don't have to do these big wide motions. Right? So the thing that you can start practicing is just building up a little bit of speed with this, and just kind of get comfortable, and then just gradually increasing the speed and see how you can get it. Right? So as far as the movements go, that's really the most, I think, efficient and effective way to really strum an ukulele, again, quickly and efficiently. There are lots of different ways to do this. You can use your thumb for other styles, all right? But that's not really what we're talking about right now. We're talking about a fluid strum motion to increase clarity and speed. And so the index finger, in my experience, is your best finger for this job. So what happens with this is a lot of people really hit a wall with trying to increase the speed. And I did too, actually. In fact, a little bit of a story time. When I was, so how long ago was this? This was 11 years ago. I was on tour in Australia, and I played at the Cairns Ukulele Festival, which still is like an all-time highlight. And after the festival, I was just so stoked. I decided I'm going to stay in Australia for a little while. So I actually stayed in the country, returning to where the Cairns Ukulele Festival was held, to basically do a bunch of gigs, specifically with these two guitarists that were just incredible. Their names were Rio and Benson, and they're just phenomenal guitarists. And they were like teenagers when I was there, so they were younger and just incredible players. So we did a whole bunch of gigs. And what would happen is we'd want to do really crazy fast stuff, like body surfing or whatever, with a lot of strumming stuff going on. And I felt pretty confident in my strumming ability before I was playing with them. And then what I realized happened was my strumming wasn't as good as I thought it was, because as soon as I started playing with somebody else, it kind of fell apart, because a lot of my speed was kind of tricked. And what I mean by that is it wasn't that I was actually doing something like a double time strum or really articulate. It's just I would kind of gradually speed up and make it sound good enough. But as soon as there was another musician there, it would clash. So I had to learn very quickly how to keep better time while strumming really fast, because I had to. I was playing with these two guitarists and I didn't want to seem like a total goof. So what ended up happening, what changed my perspective on fast strumming, was realizing that not every single strum that you make fast is equal. What I mean by this is if you're just sitting there and strumming a chord, so I'm going to play like this G5 chord. It's index finger on the 2nd fret of the C string, middle finger on the 3rd fret of the E string, and pinky here on the 5th fret of the A. If I'm going to strum this chord fast, like, something like this, and I just kind of try to hold it, see, it sounds choppy and it's not that smooth and great. The reason is because it lacks any sort of accents, and those accents can help ground you when you're doing a really fast strum. My favorite way to start practicing this is just to put an accent on every other down strum, which, if you're thinking of these as 16th notes, 1E and a 2E and a 3E and a 4E and a 1E and a 2E and a 3E and a 4E and a, every other would be the number that you count. So if I put an accent on 1E and where the after 1 on the E and I'm doing it a little softer, 1E and a 2E and a 3E and a 4E and a 1E and a 2E and a 3E and a 4E and a. What ends up happening is that these accents ground me in whatever I'm strumming, where I get that sense of 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. And as I increase the speed, what can happen is sometimes I could accidentally miss the strings. Like maybe I accidentally miss coming up, right? It doesn't matter because my accented strum, that 1, is strong and pronounced. Right now I'm missing the strings completely, but you hear that rhythm is still kind of persevering. And when you're trying to build up really fast speed, if you keep this in mind, it's going to, again, ground you in whatever rhythm you're playing so that you're able to increase that speed. See how much cleaner that sounds than what I did just a moment ago? The reason is what I'm thinking of is 1, 2, 3, 4, with all of those other strums, just trying to kind of keep up with those senses of the strong, prominent, accented beats. And this is, I find, the easiest way to start practicing this. This is complicated and difficult, no question, right? But when you're trying to get that really fast strumming, having these sort of accented strums is really the trick. Now, again, if you're a bit overwhelmed right now, that might be because you haven't really worked on just doing this as fast as you can, the first steps. This is kind of that next step for when you're trying to take it to that next speed. And man, it helped me so much to have those accented notes kind of in mind. And then you can change it up a little bit too, where you can do different patterns. My favorite accented pattern, which we're going to do a lot of in that course that I mentioned, is it's called the Tresillo rhythm. It's 1 and 4. So it's on the 1, the and of 2 and 4, which funny enough is kind of your down, down, up, down, da, 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 da. It's that rhythm, which is kind of neat. But using that rhythm with this, it would be something like 1E and a 2E and a 3E and a 4E and a 1E and a 2E and a 3E and a 4E and a. Right? Sounds really cool. And you notice that sometimes I might actually miss on the strings because my hand can't quite keep up, but as long as I'm getting those accents, I'm going to be good to go. And that's really the most critical part of this exercise, is feeling those senses of accents and trying to keep those going while all the other things are just trying to fill some of those spaces as you go between, right? It's very difficult. I'm not going to sugarcoat it. To get really, really fast with strumming, it does take a lot of practice. And truthfully, a lot of kind of like forearm strength too, because this is the most extreme part, in my opinion, of ukulele playing. In fact, the whole reason I picked up the ukulele in the first place was, like many others, I saw Jake Shimabukuro play the While My Guitar Gently Weeps, right? That whole, right, this whole stuff I just thought was so cool. Right? It's built on these same sort of concepts, but it's fun. It's really, I think, what makes the ukulele a truly unique instrument too, because you don't really hear strumming in this style on other instruments to the same extent. It really makes it, unique. So that's sort of, the main gist of strumming smoother and faster. Again, the technique portion that we talked about is using the index finger with the nail, strumming over that what we call sweet spot, which is where the fretboard meets the body. Instead of using your elbow, we're going to turn the forearm, flicking the finger down as we do it. So it's two motions, one here, one here. And then when we come back up, we're going to curl the finger up using the flesh part of the pad, kind of come right up, pointing kind of up towards your chin or face. And we're going to try to make it very efficient so that we aren't going past this sort of point, because the only thing that needs to be strummed is right here, right? So if we're making these big, wide, sweeping strums, it's very difficult to speed up at all. We're going to try to keep it in that sort of narrow area. And then as you get comfortable with this, you start speeding it up, right? And see how fast you can take that, or you just are trying to do it as quickly as possible. And when you feel like you're starting to hit a wall where you can't really go any faster, that's where you add those senses of accents to it. And my favorite is doing an accent on 1, 2, 3, and 4 with 16th notes, which is 1E and 2E and 3E and 4E and where each one of those numbers is a louder, more prominent strum. 1E and a 2E and a 3E and a 4E and a 1E and a 2E and a 3E and a 4E and a 1E and a 2E and a 3E and a 4E and a 1E and a 2E and a 3E and a 4E and a. You'll notice that can help take the speed to a next level, just like it did for me when I was gigging way back when, right? So strumming's tough. A lot of people struggle with the sense of rhythm with it too. I was that person when I was in marching band in high school growing up. I was always out of step. It was comical how bad I was with it. It was bad. So for me, rhythm took a long time to work on and to get more comfortable with than it did some people. But I'm very happy I spent all the time with it because it's so much fun to do this sort of stuff when you're working with it. A couple other little notes. One is when you're taking the strumming to the next level, that index going down like this and then kind of curling back up, if you do this motion straight up and down like this, it ultimately is kind of inefficient. One little trick I do to really build up the speed is that after I flick the finger down, I kind of bring my hand just a little bit up and have my index come up at just a slight angle. What this does is it creates a little bit of a circular motion with the finger and the hand. I'm over exaggerating it right now just a little bit, but you can see that circular motion, and that makes it much more efficient because now my hand isn't having to move so much like this as much as it's moving like this. And that can help build up a lot more speed because now the index finger is making a little bit more of the motion than just the wrist and, heaven forbid, the forearm getting involved in there. So another little trick tip when you're working on strumming. So I'm going to take some questions now, see if there are any in the chat and whatever else. It's August right now for this, so I don't expect a lot of people to be here. I hope you're all enjoying your summer. Right now we're going through a heat wave here in Seattle and there's smoke. It's a pretty miserable existence, especially because we don't have AC, but we're hanging in there. You know, it was only 90 degrees yesterday. So, all right. So Zill says hi. Thank you so much for coming. It says, there's a great RC 101 strumming etude, but I can't get strums smooth when it's only 3 strings, skipping the G string. Any tips there? I think the song is called Daybreak. So I'm not familiar with the etude, unfortunately, but when it's only strumming 3 strings, it's very difficult to do. It's pretty much any arrangement that skips the strings. It's usually not a requirement that that string is skipped every single time, and that's an important note to kind of make. I do a lot some of my instrumental originals where it says to strum only like the E and A, and it's not so much that you have to only strum the E and A as much as it is you want to focus on the E and the A strings. So in that particular case, what I like to do is by switching the strumming to be more index based, you can kind of, instead of starting up here, you can kind of get a feel for that index to kind of go in between the G and the C strings to start. And then when you come up, you try to kind of draw it in towards the G without releasing. And so that looks something like this. But the reality is I'm still going to hit that G string sometimes because it's just human nature. We can, to strum so precisely like that is really kind of unrealistic of an expectation. And so that's something that you can kind of work on, is the concepts that we talked about at the beginning of the session today. Using that finger more can help get more precision when you're trying to strum only certain strings. So I hope that helps a little bit. June says, a lot of people pinch their finger and thumb. What do you think about that? So do you mean like this type of strum? When they're doing that sort of... Is that kind of what you mean? Just want to make sure I've got the right concept there before I answer the question. But to talk just a little bit about the finger and thumb for a moment, with the ghost note strumming that I mentioned before, which we're doing a course here on Rock Class 101, the thumb starts to take this responsibility of playing the G string, specifically with high G ukulele players. And in that particular case, it's going to be intertwined with with the other strumming, and it's a lot of fun to use those different fingers in those different ways. June says, actually no, put the finger and thumb together. So I'm glad that I asked. Yeah, so putting the fingers together, similarly to if like someone handed you a business card, right, where you kind of just are touching them together to do this sort of strumming. So yes, actually I do use that a lot with really fast strumming when I want a very powerful sound. I said use it a lot. It doesn't take a large percentage of what's being strummed, but it's used frequently in different things. So my favorite example of that would be like the Jake Shimabukuro's While My Guitar Gently Weeps. When you're up here doing the crazy fast part, where it's the... right, all that. If I'm just using my index and thumb like in a ghost note thing, not pinching them together, it lacks some sort of power. But by bringing them together... it can create a lot more power going through. And I love that for its situation. The thing is I don't really love that when I'm just playing a few chords going... right? That I don't like as much personally because it's just too much. It sounds like, a lack of control. And so putting the fingers together using the nail on the up strum of the thumb and the nail on the down strum of the index is a great way to create power. And with great power comes great responsibility. So make sure you're not using it all the time, but rather when you really want to drive something home, because it's a lot of sound. And it's cool to use, in that sort of way. If I'm just strumming something and I want to like create a build, right? Just using like, I don't know, C, F, and G, for instance. If I'm just going... build it right here. Right, that last one, I'm using that up strum with the thumb on the nail and down on the index with the nail. Really creates a lot of power. You'll notice even though my hand becomes more movement here, the elbow's still not kicking in, right? I'm still not going like this. The movement, you can see the forearm is moving the muscle in the elbow like that, but the elbow itself is not physically moving still. So another great tool. Strumming has a lot of flexibility, a lot of these different tools that you can utilize, whether it's like a rasgueado or, I call them sweeps, or it's a triplet strum or whatever else, chunking or muting with the left hand, all these different things. But it's all kind of built on the same core of that index finger strum being really efficient. And from there, you can derive a lot of cool stuff or expand a lot of cool stuff. So let's see if there are any other questions. Zil mentioned this earlier. How about thumb strumming? You're so good at that. So just as a quick kind of clarification, I consider personally there's like 3 main styles of ukulele playing, and every other style is like either a combination or derived from one of these. Those 3 styles, one is finger picking, which is the act of using multiple fingers to pick. So we all know what that sounds like. Another is strumming, which is when you're using a pulse feel while playing, right? And that pulse is created in the actual hand itself. So you see how there's a consistency to the movement, right? So whether you use your index finger or multiple fingers, or even if you use your thumb, if you're only using the thumb like this, it's still that sort of strumming. Now that type of thumb strumming I never really do. I just find the index is more flexible and sounds better. The last technique though, you could call thumb picking or thumb strumming, or I like to call it melodic picking, and that's where you're using the thumb to strum through the strings like this. This is really nice for chord melody style because it gives you the opportunity to strum complete harmony sections with the opportunity to play those individual notes more melodically. So when we're doing that sort of style, the thumb really works well. I don't consider this a strumming style though. I consider it its own thing, right? The thumb sort of picking, I call it a melodic picking style. And sometimes I might be kind of strumming, but you notice how that pulse isn't there, right? It's not that sort of style. So just as a terminology, at least how I view it, that thumb strumming style I don't consider true strumming because there's not that sort of pulse that's being created with it. And so very rarely do I use the thumb strumming with the pulse feel. So let's see if there are any questions on the rock class website on how to strum faster. It doesn't look like there are. So we'll see if there are any other questions in the chat too. Again, I hope you all have been having a great summer. It's crazy how it's already August, just nuts. Very excited about the course that we're going to be releasing here on Rock Class 101. It goes into detail of this strumming technique that we call ghost note strumming, which is really the next level of this stuff that we're talking about right now. What we talked about with the index finger of creating these types of strums, the next layer to involve is that thumb sort of hitting the G string. It's a very simple technique, but it makes the difference between something like this that's just my index now with the thumb layered in. Hear that really cool, rich solo ukulele instrumental sound. And so if you're interested in learning that style, stay tuned for the course. But in the meantime, get really comfortable with that index finger strum, because this is really the basis of everything that we're going to be building upon when we do this sort of course and create that texture and tone. It's so much fun. I love strumming the ukulele because it's so happy sounding, right? But at the same time, you can get so much power from 2 octaves, 4 strings. It's just crazy. So awesome. Well, I don't see any other questions, so I guess I'll let you guys go on to your weekend plans. If you're watching this as a recording, feel free to leave any questions down in the comments below. I try to sift through them after we're done with the lessons to make sure that all the questions get answered. And if you'd like to watch these live, they are live for premium members on Rock Class 101. We do it on the second Saturday every month at 9 a.m. Pacific time. And you can convert that to whatever time zone that you might be in. But otherwise, again, I hope you all have a wonderful weekend. If you have any questions with this, feel free to comment, and I'll talk to you guys soon. Thank you so much, and see you later.